Nutritional farmers, thank you for tuning in to yet another informative edition of your program, Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness, in support of Vision 2030. Now, on a weekly basis, we are bringing you brand new episodes which speaks to agricultural enterprises right here in Zimbabwe. On this platform, we seek to equip each other with the requisite knowledge in terms of production and productivity in whichever enterprise you are undertaking as a Zimbabwean, or those we wish to inspire, or those who inspire or aspire to get into agriculture enterprises. Today, in this very instance, we are still at Pig Industry Board right here in Zimbabwe, where we are going to be looking at how their cropping ventures are complementing their piggery enterprise. To discuss this and more, I have taken the liberty of inviting Mr. Shava. He is the farm manager here at Pig Industry Board. Mr. Shava, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
I would like to know the relationship between the piggery and the cropping enterprises that you are having here. I understand as we are standing where you have recently harvested your soya beans. We have sunflower, and behind sunflower we have maize. Can you maybe take us through the relationship? What motivated you to get into cropping as well as your piggery enterprise?
Right. The main reason why we venture into these crops is that in livestock production, we require feed ingredients, and these crops that we grow here, they are all used in the feed formulations that we use at the Pig Industry Board. I can further explain that the major ingredients are composed of protein-based ingredients, then energy-based ingredients, and in our case, sunflower and soya form the basis of our protein ingredients. So the reason why we grow sunflower is that we can use it to substitute soya, but we cannot substitute it completely. We just have a blending component. We have it as a blending component in the diets. To substitute, to make our protein-based component. Then the maize is mainly for energy in our diets. So as farmers, I think we can reduce our costs by compounding our own feeds. And we cannot do that without growing our own crops that we use in the diets.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shawa. Now, looking at sunflower production, which is the anchor of today's episode, I understand that your soybeans have already been harvested, and here on Agribusiness, we've already recorded episodes on maize production. Today, we want to focus on sunflower production.
Yes.
When was this field established? How, in terms of hectarage, how is the hectarage, and when was it established?
This crop we are looking at right now, it was established in February, on the 7th of February. That's when we started planting, and we have a hectarage of about 5 hectares of this crop.
In terms of yield per hectare, I understand that, as you were saying, that this brings in your protein component. You are also looking at yields. You want to maximize on your yields. In terms of yields, how many tons are you expecting per hectare on average? And also, when are you expecting to harvest? Given that this soybean has already been harvested, but you are having your sunflower still standing in the field, when are you expecting to harvest? And what average tonnage are you expecting per hectare?
Right, this crop we expect to harvest it in mid-June. And the yield that we are expecting, since it's a late crop, because it had been established early, by this time we should have harvested. But it was established a bit late, so we are expecting to harvest mid-June. And in terms of yield, when you delay in planting, when you have such a crop, normally you tend to lose on the yield. That's why on average, we are expecting 1.5 tons per hectare.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Shawa. I would also want us to talk about general management of the sunflower crop. I understand that you might have pests and diseases, or before we go on to the pests and diseases, you might have weeds that are unique to your sunflower crop as compared to maybe soybeans and maize. In terms of general management of your sunflower crop, what were you looking at? Is it very demanding to produce sunflower, or you would advise our audience there at home that it is better to produce your sunflower other than going to purchase it from Bari or any other grain reserves. Your sentiment in terms of producing sunflower as compared to purchasing the sunflower?
Sunflower is not a demanding crop in terms of agronomic practices, because if we look at this crop here, we only had the routine tillage operations. We ripped the soil, we disked, then we used a planter, a precision planter, to plant this one. Then in terms of weed control, we only used the glyphosate as our pre-emergent herbicide to clear the small weeds that had germinated by then. Then after that, after 4 weeks, we came in with the fuselate at a rate of 2 liters per hectare. I can only say that is what we did in terms of weed control. Then in terms of feeding the crop, we applied 250 kgs of compound D. Then after 5 weeks, we came in with ammonium nitrate at the rate of 100 kgs per hectare. And as you can see, we didn't put in a lot.
Okay.
So in terms of demands, this is the crop to go for.
Mr. Shawa, as we close this segment, I would also want you to enlighten our audience in terms of maybe some of the ways or techniques or strategies that you have put in place to ensure that when you are harvesting your sunflower, you do not incur losses. How are you going to protect your yield to ensure that pamnozosanganisa chikafu chenyu chiya, be it energy, a source of protein, you have enough sunflower? How are you going to be protecting your yield or your harvest, especially during harvesting and storage?
In terms of protecting this crop after, say, during harvesting, we are not going to leave it to lose a lot of moisture. In other words, we are going to harvest it before it is dry, really dry, because normally around 14 to 16% moisture. But if we exceed that, you find the shattering will start to occur. So to avoid that, we will come in a bit earlier. Then after that, this will be well taken care of. We've got our storage facilities, the storage sheds that we have, and we are even going to use we are going to use chemicals to prevent from the weevils. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shawa. That was very detailed. On that note, viewers, we've come to the end of this first segment. We're going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this and more in the second segment. Stay tuned. Thank you, Zimbabwe, for staying tuned to Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness in support of Vision 2030, where we are talking of becoming an upper middle class economy by year 2030. And one ways we can contribute to that is through piggery and other enterprises that support pig production here in Zimbabwe. In this instance, we are going to be looking at the cropping ventures, those that complement the existing piggery enterprise here at Pig Industry Board right here in Zimbabwe. You would find that earlier on, before into the break, Mr. Shawa here was just enlightening us on how they managed to establish such a beautiful crop, the sunflower crop. Now, viewers, we encourage you to be a part of these conversations. Feel free to get in touch with me, the producer, Wadzanai Manyore. It's on 0772-807-506. Alternatively, you can like our Facebook page, Agribusiness with Wadzanai. Make a follow-up on this episode and more on our YouTube channel, Agribusiness with Wadzanai. You can also take a look on the updates that we are constantly updating on our Twitter timeline. It's at Agribusiness 110. Mr. Shawa, we are here in the second segment. Welcome back.
Okay.
Generally, Vashawa, you would find that in our farming community, there are instances whereby the head of the sunflower can be very heavy and end up lodging the entire plant, getting lodged or falling down. How did you prevent your heads of sunflowers from being too heavy, from exerting too much weight on the stem? As you can see the field, I can see throughout the entire field that there is no head that has fallen down or any stem that has fallen down. How did you manage to get to this stage without any problems or difficulties?
Right. One factor that I have to mention is that we use hybrids, and hybrids have been bred for such characteristics where they do not lodge as compared to open pollinated varieties. So that's one factor. We bought this seed from reputable companies, and this is a hybrid seed. Then the other one is that if you look at the crop, it's not widely spaced. It's almost averagely spaced. And if you exceed the population, that's when you also have another problem of lodging. And if you maintain the correct spacing, that makes the crop even, and it won't lodge.
Okay, Vasha, I also want us to talk about pests and diseases in general that might affect your sunflower during its presence in the field. I know we will also have pests and diseases when it comes to storage or maybe after harvesting, but now when it's in the field, maybe from its growth stage up to maturity, what are those pests and those diseases that you need to be taking cognizance of, and how do you control them?
Okay, in our case here, we didn't have any serious problem, but I can mention that we had bird infestation. Birds were eating on this crop. And then we also had problems with the semi-looper, and we sprayed that with the nemesis. And I think we didn't have a lot of problems in terms of pests. Then in terms of diseases, we used the tebuconazole, which is a fungicide against the mildew. And in terms of other diseases, we didn't have other diseases. I think it's because we used a hybrid seed.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can tell from the way your field is positioned, you had sunflower, you had soybeans, sunflower, then maize. Are there advantages of having such a setup, or does it come with disadvantages? Can you maybe just elaborate on this setup? It looks very beautiful from the road, by the way, where you'll be seeing your soybeans, you have your sunflower, then you have your maize. Does it come with any advantages, if any, or are there any disadvantages when you might say that there are maybe some diseases that might migrate from the soybean crop into the sunflowers or from the sunflowers into the maize? This setup, what was it like for you?
The setup was in terms of considering our rotation. Normally we rotate soya and maize. We can also do the same sunflower and maize, and soya and sunflower. So it was meant mainly to make sure that we maintain our rotation.
Finally, in terms of management, I understand that you also work with a team. Are there certain aspects that you are very strict on, given that these sunflowers are going to be straight to be fed to the pigs? Are there any instances that you might want to say, we are very strict when it comes to this aspect, given that maybe in horticultural production, you would find that chemical application need to be very careful with it, because as soon as maybe you apply your chemicals, you are harvesting and you are sending off the same crop to the market for consumption. What are your measures that you ensure that you are not having maybe poisonous plants or poisonous feed ending up in the feed troughs of the pigs? Do you have any scenarios or any aspects that you might want to highlight on?
In terms of sunflower or any other crop, I think there's need for us to maintain a clean field where we don't have foreign plants. Mm-hmm. And in terms of foreign plants, we might end up incorporating some seeds like the devil thorn. It's a poisonous plant that we don't want in the crop meant for livestock feeding.
That was very detailed, Washawa. On that note, viewers, we have come to the end of the second segment. We're going to go on a short commercial break. Be sure to stay tuned and come back in the third and final segment. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, viewers. Thank you for staying tuned to Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness, in support of Vision 2030, where we discuss everything business fundamentals in our agricultural fraternity right here in Zimbabwe. In this episode, we are looking at how cropping enterprises can complement a pig enterprise, given that this is the situation and this is the circumstance we are having here at Pig Industry Board. At this point in time, I've taken the liberty of inviting Mr. Tamo Musa once again. He's going to be taking us through the nutritional content of value of sunflower when it comes to pig production and management. Mr. Musa, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Azanai.
As we get into our discussion, what percentage does sunflower play when it comes to the diet that will be fed to the pigs?
Yeah, in fact, sunflowers are a form of protein. They are protein sources. But the kind of protein that you get from sunflower is not as good as the soybean one. It has got about 41% crude protein, right? And besides the protein content, which is around 41, against the soybean one, which is around 45 to 47, this sunflower has got a lot of fiber, which means when it comes to digestibility, it's a bit limited, and you have to use it cautiously. But it plays its role, because when it comes to the cost, you find that, the cost of sunflower cake is much lower. It's almost like a half the price of soybean meal, okay. Which means if you incorporate it in your diets, you have got a big advantage in terms of cost.
Now, Mr. Musa, speaking of cost, this is the core of agribusiness, where people want to understand production economics when it comes to pig production. I would want us to look at the cost-benefit analysis when it comes to probably producing your own sunflower as compared to going to purchase maybe the sunflower cake. What would you recommend to our audience there at home? I understand that sunflower production is not very costly. You don't need a lot of fertilizers or water application given, speaking of irrigation. What is the cost-benefit analysis when it comes to producing your own sunflower or purchasing the sunflower cake?
Okay, like any other crop, it would be advantageous to grow your own crops, even if it be maize or soybeans and sunflower included. So you find that when you grow your own sunflowers, you really cut costs by almost half, because if you were to buy sunflower cake, you can buy it as much as $380 per ton, sunflower cake. And yet if you were to produce it on your own, you are looking probably at about at most $200 per ton. So which means it's a big saving on the part of the farmer. So it's always good to grow your own sunflower if at all you have land on which to do it. Okay. But if you don't, then you are forced to outsource.
Mr. Musa, speaking of the value chain that we are looking at, where you are having a cropping enterprise feeding straight into the piggery enterprise, I would also want you to enlighten our audience there at home, maybe even the byproducts that you are going to be having from sunflower production. I know it's not just limited to soya, to sunflower cake. Yes. What are we also looking at, given that you are going to be feeding straight from the field to the mouth of the pigs?
Okay, when you grow such a crop, you are also taking care of the household needs. So you also producing oil, which we need very much in Zimbabwe. This is why even the government is promoting the production of sunflower. So you are producing oil, and the oil that we get can be channeled into the kitchen. And besides the oil, then we have also the sunflower cake, which we can use to feed our pigs, and they play a very vital role in the sense that where you would need, because you cannot replace it 100% protein source, you need to blend it have your soybean a certain percentage, like you can actually put up to 50% of this sunflower, and then you have your 50% coming from the soybean, so that you take care of the fibrous thing. So you blend, and once you blend, because these two components have different prices, sunflower on the lower side and this one on the higher side, at least you are cutting costs. It will be very, very different from someone who will be using soybean meal 100%. So it's actually a very good crop to grow, so that you take care of the animals as well as the people.
Okay.
Yes.
Finally, as we close, your word of advice to our farming community in terms of producing your very own raw materials. We have situations and instances in our economy and country at times whereby you cannot even source the raw materials. And even if you can source them, they are very pricey. They are on the pricier end. Your word of advice to our farming community in terms of maybe complementing enterprises, having one enterprise feeding directly into the other one, like the circumstance that you are having here, that this sunflower is going to be fed straight into the pigs, and you're also going to be extracting oil from the same sunflower. Your word of advice as we close.
Yeah, my advice is that farmers, whenever you have got land on which to grow such crops, just grow your own crops. You do a great saving. So grow your own crops, and you will be able to control the cost of production of your meat that you are going to producing through your pigs. And what we have noticed is once you grow your own crop, it means you have control over the inputs, that is your protein source, and you can also grow your maize, which is your energy source, so that you control also the price. Then all what you need to buy is probably your vitamin mineral premix.
Okay.
This is what you can get from the stock feed manufacturers, because you can't make such a unit. So that unit is a very small component in the diet, and this is the only thing that you will pay for whatever price. But all these other things, because here in Zimbabwe we've got a lot of land, and which means we can grow our own raw materials and save a lot, so that your production cost per unit of meat that you are going to be producing will be very low, and whatever price you are going to be selling your product, you get the best profit margin.
Thank you so much, Mr. Musa. It was a pleasure having you with us today.
Thanks, Wadzanai.
On that note, viewers, we have come to the end of this week's edition, where we're looking at how cropping enterprises here at PIB are complementing or enhancing production of pig meat here at PIB. From me, host Wadzanai Manyore, I'm also on Instagram. It's W Manyore, and the crew behind the scenes. Have yourselves a fabulous evening. Thank you for watching.